Let's do it.
Rolls out to the right. 5 seconds to go in the first half. Dante fires deep to the left. Moss caught it at the 11, but now he pitches it to Mo Williams. Touchdown!
You gotta be kidding me!
All right, and welcome back to another episode of the Climb in the Pocket podcast. I am your host, Jason Brown. Don't have the full crew with us tonight. Miles, unfortunately, had to be taken away to go host a dinner party or something like that, so he's not going to be on. But don't fret. We still got the man, QB1, taking a break from bowl season and watching draft prospects to come on and chop it up with us tonight. What's going on, JR?
What's going on, man? You know, happy to be back for another edition. I'm actually watching TCU and Stanford right now, so I'm multitasking right now.
I should have known you weren't actually taking a break from bowl season. That's my bad. I should have known better than that. That was a silly thing for me to say. And next up, the man who made a splash this very week, you know, getting the college draft season really kicked off here. Saxy Prince had to throw his own highlights into the mix to let people know what's really going on with all-time quarterback in the Minnesota something Flag Football Association. What's going on, Saxy Prince?
What's up, y'all? You know what I should have done? I should have had the old school, like, what was it, 2005, 6, when they had the whole draft me videos and whatnot. I should have came out with one of those and let Cleveland know, hey, y'all have the first pick. I mean, I guess Josh Allen and all them cats have done really well, but, you know, the real person you should pick Prince. Best decision y'all ever make.
Yeah, so JR, you're in evaluation mode. You got to see a couple extra clips of, Prince moving around the pocket, Prince dropping some bombs on him, going deep to our one and only Miles Gorham down there. Have you changed your evaluation at all? Can you get a draftable grade in the CFL from you now?
It's a little rough right now. I think we're gonna have to move him to wide receiver. That's the early that's the early projection right now. It's just the throwing motion and his running ability. I just think he's more of an athlete than a quarterback right now. So I would like to see him work out at quarterback and wide receiver, honestly.
But he did say right now. So we clean up the footwork, arm strength gets improved a little bit. You got me.
Hey, I mean, we did have you down as Case Keenum for our player comp. That's what Miles was saying. He was thinking when he was out there running them routes and stuff, waiting for them deep balls to come in. He said, he felt like Case Keenum. He said you balled out that game.
So what you're trying to say is I'm going to get it paid a lot of money to fool a lot of people. I'll do it. I'll take it.
I will say this though, the throwing motion is a mix of Tim Tebow and Byron Leftwich-esque.
Oh, Byron had a heart, though. Byron had a heart. But, we did mention, draft stuff a little bit in there. And, one of the things that made waves a little bit earlier this week, got a lot of people talking, was Josh Rosen and the comments that he's made, which really weren't that big of a deal. And people were asking, what's more important, being drafted higher or going to a good situation? And he made what I thought was he said the truth, which is a good situation is probably better than being drafted higher, which everyone has taken to mean he doesn't want to go to Cleveland, because with Hugh Jackson there, who would really want to go to Cleveland? But I know I'm leading the witness a little bit on this one. But, JR, I know we had a lot of conversation on this. I think you probably started the thread that got all this conversation kicked off. I guess as someone who does kind of live and breathe this draft thing and has been around football a lot, been in locker rooms and all that, what are your thoughts on what Josh Rosen said? And I guess, what are your thoughts on how other football players would react to what Josh Rosen said?
Well, the one thing you have to understand first is that you have to understand Josh Rosen. He's not your traditional, player coming into the draft that's just going to do whatever the NFL says and be fine with it. He's a guy that wants to be a future politician, just reading more into him. He wants to be a future politician whenever he's done with the NFL. So he has his stuff together, in other words, and he's not just a yes man. He's not a guy that's going to do the traditional way or go about the traditional way of doing things. If he sees a problem with something or if he disagrees with something, he's going to challenge it or do what's best in his interest. And that's what you see with Josh Rosen in the whole draft process. A couple months ago, I don't know if you guys remember this, he bought about the whole comments about school and athletes not really mixing and saying that it's just too hard on student athletes to balance the two. And now he comes out and says his comments about the Browns, and now he's trying to cherry pick, so to speak, his way of going to the Giants. Everyone's saying he prefers the Giants over the Browns. He's not on record as saying that, but a lot of people believe that's just a situation or a team that he prefers over the Browns. And what he's done to this point, I don't think he's done anything wrong. It's in his right to cherry pick, or not necessarily pick the team that he wants to go to, but the situation that's most comfortable for him, or the situation that he thinks benefits most for him in the long run. And that's what you're seeing, what he's doing. We all know Hugh Jackson is not a very good head coach right now. I mean, he's 1-31. He's ruined a 20-year-old quarterback in Deshaun Kaiser to this point, who's on track for a historically bad season. And we all know the Browns culture is really bad to this point. So why would I go and basically set myself up for failure in that situation when I can go to another team like the Giants, who has a decent culture in the past? Right now it's not very good, but they just hired a GM today in Dave Gettleman, who's had a track record with a young quarterback in Cam Newton that's been successful, went to a Super Bowl. So obviously that situation is better for Josh Rosen walking into a locker room like the Giants as opposed to the Browns' horrible culture. But I think it's kind of like a political thing for me. And what I mean by that is everyone's going to have their stance about a certain situation, but you have to look at it from Josh Rosen's situation. And I think what he's done to this point has been spot on. I don't think he's done anything wrong, but it's going to be interesting to see how it does unfold and what he does end up deciding to do, and what the Browns do end up deciding to do, if they do end up drafting him or not.
And Yinka, I guess, what are your thoughts on this? And I guess, how do you feel about people who say that, NFL draft prospects should really just shut up, be happy that they have the opportunity to be drafted, and that, it makes him seem like entitled or something like that, in that he is trying to sway or influence where he ends up through this draft process?
Well, just from, I was never a college athlete, but, I really got to get into depth with what a college athlete does with my younger brother. And I really had to see all the battles and struggles that he had to go through. And I think a lot of people do think that college athletes, even if they're superstar athletes, that all of them are entitled, or they're celebrities and all that stuff. But I mean, some of these guys are not coming. Josh Rosen kind of touched on this, are not coming from great, not going from great homes or communities and whatnot. So it's unfortunate that people think that they shouldn't have some kind of control in their own destiny, because I mean, at the end of the day, if there's a place that you don't really want to work, you just don't put it in an application for it. And I think it's scary for the NFL and fans when players will start to get more power into the things that they want to say. Rosen never outright came out and said, I don't want to play for the Browns. But he did say something real that I think a lot of players are thinking about. There's certain organizations I don't want to play for because they have shown to be dysfunctional, or maybe it's not the right fit for myself. But at the end of the day, I think Josh Rosen is starting to touch in something that you might see in the future. I mean, the NBA, essentially what they did is they kind of went to LeBron and Kevin Garnett and some of these other players and just like, we're going to hand over the reins to you, but we want you to give us the best possible product. And that's essentially what they did. You create super teams, all other stuff. Whereas in the NFL, you have a lot more players, so it's a lot harder to do. But it would be interesting to see what this league would become if players are just like, you know what, maybe Cleveland does become that team where players want to go to, and then they start saying, I don't really want to go to the Patriots, for instance. They're, Bill Belichick's not there anymore. The organization is not what it used to be, all that stuff. But players should have somewhat of power in their own destiny when it comes to the NFL. Because some players we've seen, if they go to the, not an ideal situation, it does affect how they are looked at by other teams and not being able to get other jobs. So for them to just be great.
Case Keenum?
Let's not talk about him. To affect how they could get potentially future jobs, it is important that they get the right fit right away, because it's their livelihood, it's their families they're trying to take care of, all that stuff. So I don't know. I guess I'd never really understand fans that want to spend other people's money for them, and in a way, by saying that they shouldn't have this, you're trying to spend their money for them. So, I'm all for it as long as they're not disrespectful in any kind of way, outright saying, well, the Browns are trash, I never want to play for them. If they're just like, yeah, I much prefer to get to the right fit than, making as much money right away and then be out the league in 4 years because I was in a dysfunctional situation.
Yeah, and I think it also comes back to like what we actually want as fans. Do we want players to be honest? Because you hear that a lot. Like, I want my players to be honest. I want them to tell us what's on their actual mind. Or do we want them to give us the cookie cutter kind of answers that don't, cause any ripples in the pond? Or is it that we only want them to be honest when they're actually saying what I believe? Because it seems like that's usually what it actually boils down to, is that we only want honesty if they agree with us. But another player, I guess, kind of with this whole Josh Rosen thing, the player that usually comes to mind for people when they think about, entitlement or forcing your way out of a situation is Eli Manning. He famously didn't want to play for the Chargers, got himself traded to the Giants. And the question popped up today, and I want to get y'all's opinion on it because it's an interesting one. Quickly, I guess, JR, from your perspective, who would you rather be? Dan Marino and be widely viewed as one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game, or Eli Manning to be viewed as a guy who's kind of okay when he won 2 Super Bowls?
I would go with Dan Marino simply because if we're talking about from a legacy standpoint, I mean, he is arguably one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. But on the flip side of that, we played a game to win championships, and that's what Eli Manning did. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. But me personally, I would rather be Dan Marino simply because his legacy is more set in stone than what I think Eli Manning's ever will be. And let's say 20 to 30 years down the road, Dan Marino's legacy will still live on while Eli Manning won't be I won't say he'll necessarily be forgotten, but it won't be as, potent or magnified in stature like Dan Marino's was. So I would rather be Dan Marino.
That's fair. How about you, Prince?
Mine's pretty quick. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I do have to go with Eli Manning. I mean, we know that these quarterbacks or even teams are weighed in championships, and Minnesota Vikings have been struggling to have a championship ever, really. And, a lot of people just say, just get one. There's quarterbacks who have never won a championship, and they put up stats. Aaron Rodgers is one who's only won 1 Super Bowl, and he's arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. But unfortunately, his legacy will become tainted by, oh, well, why didn't he win? And granted, it's not, just his fault, obviously. I mean, it is a team sport. But, when you measure players and their accolades and stuff, you have to – Super Bowls are extremely important. So I definitely would have to go with Eli Manning.
Well, I guess the one benefit that we get from Miles not being here is that when we have a tie, I get to break it. And in this case, Prince, I'm going to have to say that you're wrong. JR is correct because Eli Manning's not that good. And I think
I don't know how painful that was for you to say.
No, not at all. No, I enjoy saying that you're wrong. It's
Jason hates Eli.
Eli's not good, but I think I look at it differently, and I know we've talked about it. Like, if the NFL was picking a champion the way that, say, baseball or the NBA does, where like you have a multi-game series to determine who the winner is, where you really know that the best team in the league is likely to be the team that wins it. I'd look at the championships and kind of how you evaluate quarterbacks a little bit differently. But Yinka, I know that as a general rule, you're not really about like that QB wins life or QBs are the reason teams are winning and losing. And if we're not going to be like that in the regular season where we're putting it all on the quarterback and it's all about the quarterback, I don't think that you can do that in the postseason and say that, this quarterback is somehow put on a higher level than this other quarterback because he happened, in this case, to get kind of a couple of fluky Super Bowl wins versus a couple of fluky games at some other point in the season.
That's not completely fair because if we do look at, off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly what it was. Eli did play well during those Super Bowl runs. I don't think that can be taken away from him. During regular season, yeah, he's been a fairly average quarterback. However, during I think both Super Bowl runs, he actually did play very, very well, which, I mean, ultimately speaking, as an average quarterback, you would kind of, if you're a high volatility type guy, you want your volatility, you want that to kind of show its way in the playoffs where you're playing at a very, very high level. Before Case Keenum was what he is right now, I mean, we still thought of him as being that high volatility quarterback. So we kind of wanted him to be, that Eli Manning, Joe Flacco type guy during this playoff run that we go. So it's why I'm not necessarily giving him the QB wins, but I am saying that I do believe he did play well when it mattered. And I think that that's something that I can't take away from him, despite him not playing well before that.
Yeah, I mean, in one of the Super Bowls, he had a completion percentage of 56%, passer rating of 87, couple TDs, 1 interception, 3 sacks. So, I mean, in the first Super Bowl run, he was amazing in the opening 2 rounds, and then kind of tailed off as the rest of the things went along, and the defense kind of brought him home. The second go around, he was good throughout. So yeah, he was good in those. I'm just saying, generally speaking, if I'm evaluating a quarterback, it's their play versus the outcome. And Dan Marino, as JR said, is an all-time great in this thing based on how he played consistently throughout the majority of his career, changed the game. And I look at Eli as kind of someone who got lucky a couple of times and happened to win a couple one-game series. And now we look at him, or we're supposed to look at him differently when you look at the full length of his career, and it's kind of just average. But whatever.
I mean, you can call him. I don't disagree. I think you can fairly say that you can call him average. I'm just saying, like, when you look at when you encapsulate the entire career, those Super Bowl wins are going to weigh very, very heavy as far as
no doubt.
Career is.
But I guess to flip it the other way, because Christmas is past, so we're in the season now. It's officially basketball season. Would you rather be Kenny Smith or Charles Barkley? Because on Inside the NBA, Kenny and Shaq give Charles a lot of grief for not having won a championship. But like when you're talking about legacy in basketball, you rather be Charles or Kenny?
Oh yeah,
that's an easy choice.
Go ahead, Jay. I'll let you go first.
Charles Barkley.
It's Charles Barkley, man. You want to be one of the all-time greats, not the dude who just happened to win a couple championships.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm definitely looking at how, I guess we as a collective group have definitely elevated, Super Bowls, because it's not just important for the players.
Don't put us in this. No, we.
It's also it's
on this one.
But no, I'm just saying it's not just important for the player. It's also important for the organization and the team. So he was a part of that as far as Eli Manning, which is why I can't discount it, because of the fact that during the regular season he was average, maybe below average. Trash. Yeah. But at the same time, when he needed to play well, which is what we asked for these quarterbacks time and time again, he did. So, all right.
So there's hope yet that a quarterback who is generally been considered average to find his way into Saxy Prince's heart if he takes the team to win in the big one. That's good to know that there's still that chance for you later on in this season, Saxy Prince. But the next topic that we're going to talk about a little bit that had people really worked up for whatever reason earlier today, I think this was JR's fault again, because JR likes to stir things up, is the Rams resting some key players going into Week 17. And as Miles pointed out, the Chiefs are also resting key players going into Week 17. But Vikings Twitter was very, very upset about the fact, or worked up, or whatever it was, about the fact that the Rams arresting players, and that could be construed as the Rams potentially trying to avoid the Vikings as things kind of shake out or move in the playoffs. So JR, again, you started it. What are your thoughts? And I guess when you posted that tweet earlier today, I guess what was it that you expected to be the reaction? And I guess what are your thoughts about McVay saying it's more important for him to have his full squad healthy going into the playoffs than potentially moving up one in the season?
Well, first thing, I'm not saying what McVay is doing is right or wrong. A lot of people are speculating that he's trying to get the 4 seed as opposed to the 3 seed and avoid Minnesota, which we don't know if it's true or not. But me personally, I just don't believe in sitting your key guys for an entire game. I'm fine with playing them for a quarter or a half, simply because football is all about timing and chemistry. And I know people say Aaron Donald and Ty Gurley don't need reps at this point, but I'm just a firm believer in that having that momentum or just having their timing ready to go whenever the playoffs do start. And let's say they are rusty for a quarter or even a half, that's the difference in a playoff game. So I just think each and every rep is so precious in the playoffs. And let's say they do take some time to get their games back together just because they sat out those games or they set out that last game of the season. I just think I just don't think you can sit them. That's just me personally. I know the new age thing, like a lot of people are saying with McVay, is to sit out your guys and have them fully ready to go, healthy for the playoffs. And I'm completely fine with that. I'm not saying that's wrong, but simply from my standpoint, I just don't believe in sitting guys for an entire game.
You old school, JR. We know that. We know that. And Prince, I guess, what are your thoughts on it? How you feel about, the Rams resting players, I guess, A, B, do you think at this point McVay is already looking ahead to potentially the second round of the playoffs and thinking about a Vikings matchup and losing this game to potentially avoid the Vikings? Yeah, and then C, do you think maybe we're making this too big of a deal, all of this, because Kansas City's resting players too, and no one's really talking about them?
Yeah, I do think it's the side of it that I think is kind of being overblown is all the resting players because they want to lose because they don't want to play Vikings. I mean, I think that's a take that people took it way farther than it needed to be. It's like, okay, well, if the Rams rest players, then they might lose, and then maybe that's what they're trying to do so they don't face the Vikings. Whereas I think it's more of the they're resting players because they really feel they have their seat locked up. There's no point in going out to play a game in which, if they lose Aaron Donald, they lose Jared Goff, you lose a key guy on either side of the ball, that might just decrease their chances of, getting to that final game. So I'm all for it. I don't really think that I don't really feel like, if they're only playing for half or they miss the entire game, I don't think that those, let's say 30 some odd reps on both sides of the ball that they're going to miss is going to make that big a deal. Because at the end of the day, if they go out there and they throw a clunker, I'm not going to blame it on, well, they missed the game. I'm not throwing it on preparation. I'm not throwing it on, maybe they didn't practice seriously enough or whatnot. Jared is not wrong in his assessment that like every rep counts in the playoffs. I just think that, maybe that's something that you need to do. Maybe you need to put in a little bit more time if you're going to rest these players and whatnot. So I'm just all for, I want the best football throughout the playoffs. And how I would do that is I want to make sure Aaron Donald doesn't get hurt during a game. If he gets hurt during a practice, then there was really nothing that I could do. But I can at least prevent him from getting hurt in a game that's a lot more intense, full speed, all that stuff. So
yeah, it's fair. And I guess I'm kind of down the middle on this one, in that I don't think that Gurley or Aaron Donald really need the reps at this point, especially like the running back position. I think that's one that at this point, a lot of it is, yeah, it's timing, but a lot of it, is instinct. And I mean, Gurley is just that dude. He's been that dude since, UGA. He's got a great system. And I think that, they're clicking in terms of what they're doing with him. Aaron Donald, same thing. I mean, he's a monster. I don't think that if he misses a game that it's going to affect him or his play too much. But where I do kind of align with JR a little bit here is that Jared Goff, I mean, he's new to this. He's new to playing at this level in this league. And yeah, he's having a good season, but he's the guy that I think more than anyone, I want getting as many reps as possible, because even in this season, I mean, he's had some down moments in this season against some better competition. And so I would definitely want to make sure that he's getting as many reps as he can get going into, keep him and his rhythm in terms of preparation, and maybe even just play him for the first half. It's one of the things that JR was saying before we came on the air. Get him in there, make him go through the same routine, play him for that first half, and then sub him out and let the the backups go in and play the rest of the way. So I can see it either way. I'm with Yinka though. I think that a little bit of this is being a bit overblown in terms of they're already thinking about that second round matchup with the Vikings, and that, I mean, they're thinking about next week. I mean, it'd be very presumptive of them to just kind of assume that they are going to walk through whoever they play in the first round and start making moves to deal with, the second round potential matchup that could happen with the Vikings. So I'm not really willing to take it that far, but I think Jared Goff should get some reps and go through his routine because he's still a young guy who wasn't great last season and has been a bit up and down in this season as well. So I think that's it with the random stuff we wanted to talk about before we jumped into the strictly Vikings section of this podcast. So, I mean, we haven't been on since the Vikings played the Packers in that game last Saturday. And so, Yinka, I'm going to start with you on this one since you forced us to talk about that dreadfully boring game. What were your big takeaways from that game other than it was a dreadfully boring game that was played in bitter cold, and it seemed obvious watching the guys perform out there that folks weren't really at their best based on the elements that they were performing in that game?
It was an awful game. It was boring. It just felt like neither team really wanted to win that football game because they were just so cold. I was a little bit disappointed in the Vikings, obviously. Team that obviously was, didn't have Aaron Rodgers.
Hold up. We got to shut up for the first time in how many years, and you were disappointed?
Yeah, because it shut out great, whatever the case is. But I do want to see my Vikings when they're supposed to face teams that they're supposed to win against. I do want them to see them handling business. 16-0. I mean, I'd much rather have the game had been 26-13 type thing. Because obviously a win's a win, but it just didn't feel as if this was our greatest offensive performance. Defense, we played lights out. I'm not really worried about this defense going forward into the playoffs. You didn't really see the Vikings really give up anything. I think we can honestly say that this is a historic Vikings defense. Even if you're just looking at third down percentage, I think we will get taught. The 2017 Vikings defense will get talked about. But offensively, I just, you can blame some of it on cold weather. At the same time, we play in the Midwest. So, we have to be used to playing in the cold at some point. So it just overall, maybe not Case Keenum's greatest game. But, at the same time, we got away with the victory. But, I just wasn't really, I was more disappointed than anything because I felt like that should have been a game that we probably should have maybe run up the score a little bit more than we did. And
one thing that I'm really hearing now is we go through this season and the Vikings continue to play well, string wins together, but you keep looking for things and keep feeling coming out of these games. And what seems to be not completely fulfilled is I can hear the immigrant parent coming out of you. I can hear the years of Yinka coming home with that 98 on a test and expecting to get some ice cream or some milk and cookies or something, and his parents looked him dead in his face and were like, but where's the other 2%? What happened with the other 2%? Because I've been there. No, I hear it coming out of you right now. You're like, well, they shut them out, but they could have done some other stuff a little better,
No, and maybe it's the coach's hat going into me because thing is wins don't necessarily stop evaluations as well as wins don't necessarily stop development as well too. And I know that it's weird to think about weeks going into week 17 and this team can still get better, but I think that we still can get better. We are the number one ranked defense right now. We ranked number 10, I think, in total offense. That offense can move. The offense can move a little bit more. Move the needle a little bit more and to be close to top 5, if not that. Because I do think every team that we're going to face is going to elevate their play. I think the Rams team isn't going to be the Rams team that we faced way back when. I think we faced the Seahawks, despite all the issues that they're having. Russell Wilson is a potential MVP candidate, and I just worry that we are at times played down to the competition that we have when we are on paper and on tape a very, very good football team. So we shut them out. It was great. It's just that my expectations for the team as the weeks go on is that they're going to continue to get better. And I just felt like from the prior week to this week, they didn't get better, and that's I guess that's where the disappointment comes from.
All right, I guess that's fair. And JR, I guess from your perspective, what are your thoughts? Vikings, Packers, what are the things that you have taken away from this? And then I guess I want to ask you kind of a follow-up question on that. Is one of the things that you brought up kind of in terms of your feelings about the Vikings getting a bye is that they were really going into the playoffs clicking if they got that bye. And so based on kind of what we've seen, maybe not defensively because the defense has been locked in, but I guess based on what we've seen from the offense over the past few weeks, I guess, how are you feeling about things going into this week with it looking like the Vikings are going to get that bye based on what you've seen out of the offense over the last little while?
Yeah, I feel like the offense has kind of been out of sync. Well, the passing game has been out of sync since Thanksgiving. It just seems like they haven't been together on one accord, and it just seems out of sorts the past few weeks. I mean, the cold weather does have an effect on the passing game in Lambeau Field, so I'll give them a pass for that. I'm not going to be like Yinka and expect an all-out air attack like he said in his predictions, but I'm not going to bring that back up. But anyway, I don't know if you remember that, Jason. Yinka predicted a 45.
I don't know what you're talking about, JR. I don't
45-point performance in 10-degree weather.
I mean, I can't say that. I was out here hoping for Case Keenum to lead me to the fantasy football championship. And so I was kind of trying to speak it into existence. So I think I was hoping for 4 touchdowns. So I can't give Saxy Prince too much grief. Yeah, I mean, I still won though, but you know, can't give him too much grief.
But I mean, we see Keenum miss a few deep shots, the Diggs and to Thielen that really could have opened the game up. And it just seems like the deep passing game, they've been out of sync. He did have a nice throw down the sideline to Diggs, a nice back shoulder throw, which is one of the more encouraging throws throughout the night. He did have some throws where he did get lucky. It should have been pick sixes or turnovers. At least Clinton Dix had a couple, especially one where he could have returned back to the house, but he did drop it, luckily. But it just seems like things were out of sorts, and the offense has kind of been out of flux the past few weeks. So playing a Bears defensive attack that is middle of the pack, I would like to see them get back clicking, especially if we're hoping to have this bye week. And what we don't want to do going into the bye week, if we do win this game, is have a lower tier or a down performance on offense. That's what I really don't want to see, because coming out of that bye, if we do win this game, I just think the momentum is going to be really bad and the chemistry is not going to be great coming out of that game. And coming into that game, in the playoffs. And we might see a little bit of rust, whoever we do play in the divisional round.
Yeah, and shout out to Flip, because he was actually posting some stuff about the game right now on Twitter. And one of the things that he pointed out is that, you know, because of the big, I guess we'll say, lead or the early season success that the Vikings had when things really were clicking, overall, from a pass game standpoint, the success rate for Minnesota is sitting at second. But what Flip pointed out in one of the tweets that he just put up there is that over the past 4 weeks, we were actually only 13th from a success rate standpoint. So what you're calling out there in terms of the team not really being as sharp, not really clicking the way that we used to, it's bearing itself out in the stats as well. And that, you know, we've kind of fallen back to being a middle of the road passing attack from where we were earlier in the season. So I guess the hope is, like you said, that we can get this thing really clicking against Chicago and go in with that positive momentum, get that confidence back in, because, you know, playoff time, you know, can't afford any rust, can't afford any of that going in, because it's one and done, and the competition is going to be a much higher level, especially in the NFC. But you know, with that kind of said, in the passing game, you know, it takes us to Prince's favorite topic, which is quarterbacks. And I'm starting to think that maybe Mike Zimmer, as much as he likes to pretend that this whole thing really upsets him, I'm starting to think that he might be enjoying trolling the media a little bit with this quarterback stuff, because, you know, first, you know, well, I mean, he really loves to, you know, have conversations with Chris Thompson about this stuff. But, you know, first, you know, we announce the man, Sam Bradford, back, knee cleaned up. I know, but his knee is cleaned up. And apparently he will be coming back to practice. Not sure when they're going to be activating him, but he's going to be out there trying to do some things. So that's to pass, I think, another physical from Vikings medical staff. And then he'll be at practice next week doing some things.
Doing what, though? Not football, right?
I mean, he'll be doing some football-related things. And, based on the poll from our friends over there at the About the Labor podcast, seems like the majority of Vikings fans would like him to slide right into that number 2 slot on the depth chart. And then, Zimmer follows that up with, as always, his effusively praising comments about Teddy Bridgewater and how Teddy's ready to go. And if anything was to happen, he has full confidence that Teddy's going to get out there and do the things that the team needs him to do. And that, everywhere Teddy goes, people love him all the way back to high school, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess with all of that, JR, obviously we're talking quarterbacks. We'll start with you because Yinka, he hates talking about him, but we're going to start with you here. Guess what are your thoughts on all of this that we have kind of swirling around the Vikings, quote unquote, quarterback controversy as we head into this game with the Bears and as we move forward into the playoffs? And I guess what would your quarterback depth chart look like if everyone's healthy once we get to the playoffs?
Well, first on the subject of Sam Bradford, it's like I always tell you guys, since he's been in Minnesota, he's always seemed like the forgotten stepchild. Zimmer is doing everything he can to make him feel wanted or make him fit in, but it just seems like Sam has never fitted in. It just seems like Zimmer has always found some way or tried his hardest to make Sam Bradford fit in, and we saw that this offseason where they were saying, I think he came down to Zimmer's ranch or he went to Oklahoma with Sam where they were trying to rekindle or make their relationship better or just getting closer since that was his quarterback coming into this season. So it just seems like he's done his best or tried everything he can to make Sam Bradford fit in. And that's why I say he always seems like he's been that forgotten stepchild. And that's what we see with Sam Bradford right now. I don't expect him to be activated because it just doesn't make sense for him from a financial standpoint. Yes, Sam does have a lot of money, but we all know with professional athletes, they always want more money. And with him being a free agent, it just doesn't make sense for him to come back and risk further injury or further damage to his knees. Yes, I know he wants to come back and maybe prove that he's healthy going into free agency, but I just think the risk outweighs the gain for him to come back at this point in the playoffs. And I mean, who knows? I don't think he'll ever get in or, get over Case Keenum unless an injury happens. And I don't think they would play him in front of Teddy Bridgewater simply because of how they view Teddy and what Teddy has shown to this point, not in those 6 reps or whatever he got, but he's proven that he can be healthy up until this point, and Sam is still an unknown. We've seen Teddy in game action. Yes, he hasn't proved anything to this point, but he does have 6 reps. And all we know of Sam to this point is what we saw in the game against Chicago. So for the playoffs, it would be Keenum, Bridgewater, and Slaughter, and I would not activate Sam Bradford. But that's just me. If they were all healthy, of course, Sam Bradford is the best of the bunch, in my opinion.
Okay. I'm sorry, hold up. I feel like I need like the DJ spinning the record back sound right now. But did you say if all healthy, so Teddy's healthy, Sam's healthy, and Keenum's healthy, and you knew that with 100% certainty, Sam Bradford's your guy because he's the best of the bunch? Did I hear you say that? I just wanted to make sure that I heard what I thought I heard before I move on here.
Only because I don't know what Teddy is at this point. The knee injury does scare me. I mean, I just think Case Keenum is going to regress back to the mean at some point. Yes, we've been waiting forever, but I just don't think he can be this same guy outside of Pat Shurmur. And I think Sam Bradford can play at a higher level than what Keenum is showing right now, even if he doesn't have these type of pieces around him. So I just trust Sam Bradford to make more or all of the throws rather than those other guys.
Okay. All right. It's really cold, so I don't think the pigs will actually be flying if I go and look outside my window. But, I mean, it's close. I might have to go check because that is the last thing I expected to hear today. All right. Well, Saxy Prince, same question to you, my man. Quarterback controversy, quarterback depth chart, all of it. What are your thoughts? What are your takes? What's your depth chart look like?
Man, I don't see Sam Bradford being anything at all to this team. can I see him potentially getting activated in, maybe really, really late after the divisional round? I could see it happening. To see if they want to just have another quarterback just in case. Again, you have Case Keenum, you have Teddy Bridgewater, and then you would have Sam Bradford, and then you just let go. I mean, you wouldn't let go Kyle Sauter because you still need him for future. But you would have three quarterbacks all capable of running this offense. Can play at a fairly high level with given the weapons and the things that we have around him. But I just don't, kind of like JR, I just don't see any reason to activate him if he really is, if he really is healthy. I personally think, and I think, Jason, you've said this before, I think this is his agent, Tom Condon, asking the Vikings organization to just throw him a bone. Say that I am healthy so that I can get work after this season, And, he might be healthy. He might be 100%. He might only be 80. But at the same time, I just don't see any reason why Sam Bradford would feel the need to get into playing football for the Vikings for this season. I think, JR had a pretty great post the other day with, people all of a sudden, saying, well, you can't play Teddy Bridgewater because of the injury. We don't know what he's at. But then those same people are turning around saying, well, you got to put Sam Bradford in because, he's the guy. And I just don't think, I think after getting disappointed in that Chicago game, that was enough for us to be like, he needs to be shut down for the rest of the season. We can't rely on him anymore. If you are going to turn the reins over, in my opinion, it's still the same thing. Case Keenum is your quarterback 1, Teddy Bridgewater is your quarterback 2. Sands, major blow up. Case Keenum gets injured. What I saw from Teddy Bridgewater, that's actually what, for me, who is a Teddy Bridgewater supporter, that is exactly what I expected to see. Wasn't happy to see it, but I was expected. That's what I expected to see it as first couple series. After that point, I think if he gets back on the football again, I think you would see less of the nerves go away. I think you would see the jitteriness go away. That's neither here nor there because he's QB2. So it just doesn't seem like it's in Sam's best interest to play. But I understand if the Vikings wanted to activate them to just have that, safety net for themselves.
Okay. All right. I mean, this is an amazing episode right now. We got JR putting Sam at the top of his hypothetical all healthy depth chart. Yanka, when given the opportunity, keeping Case Keenum at the top of his. This is crazy business right here. I guess, are either of you guys superstitious? Because one of the things that came out this week is that the Vikings are the betting favorites in the NFC to make the Super Bowl. And I was just curious, I guess, does that make y'all feel any kind of way? JR, I know that, you've mentioned some things about maybe being a little superstitious in terms of like game day routines and stuff like that. But in terms of being a fan, does that do anything for you? Does that make you nervous, worried, or is it just kind of like, yeah, they're the best team in the NFC right now, so that makes sense?
Yeah, from a game day ritual, I am superstitious, but, that's a subject for another day as far as betting and betting odds and all that other stuff. I don't really pay attention to it. And I firmly believe that if any team in the NFC has to come to Minnesota, I think they could beat any team in the NFC. If they do end up having to go to Philly, I think that they would be the better team simply because if we're matching up the quarterbacks, I trust Case Keenum more than I do Nick Foles, and I like my matchup with Mike Zimmer against Nick Foles and Doug Peterson, as opposed to, the Vikings offense against the Eagles defense and their secondary. So I like their matchup, whoever they do run into, especially if they have to come to Minnesota.
All right, Prince. And how about you, man? What are your thoughts on things in terms of it, like really being out there? Because I know a lot of the fan base doesn't want to even say the word Super Bowl. But now, I mean, Vegas, the money is starting to say like, hey, there's a pretty decent chance this could happen. I guess. What are your thoughts on that? Or would you just like us to stop talking about this altogether?
Yeah, I'm not superstitious at all. I do think it's funny that, obviously when we started really going on that, 8-game win streak and stuff, everyone was just like, yeah, we're going to the Super Bowl. And now that it's a reality, it's just like, shh, don't talk about us going to the Super Bowl. So it's for me, it's no superstition. I think if we are going to be the best team, and I think we are the best team currently right now in the NFC, we're going to, we handle our business, we should be the team that's representing the NFC. And I don't think us speaking that into existence is going to jinx us in any kind of way. But, you know, we all reference back Eric Thompson's his Venn diagram where, you know, people have nice things and then Vikings fans. So could there be something that comes along the way? Yes, but I don't think that that's any more likely to happen just because, you know, we talked about you know, the Vikings going to the Super Bowl. If they're meant to go to the Super Bowl, they're meant to go to the Super Bowl. If they're not, then let's lather, rinse, repeat next year.
Okay. Well, all right then. I think we covered everything that's not related to this upcoming game that we have here. So I guess let's do it. Let's talk about the Bears. The last game, I mean, it was a bit uneven, but there was a lot of strange things going on. Like Yinka mentioned earlier, Sam Bradford tried to play. It was obvious he shouldn't have been playing, but he tried to play, and they left him out there probably a little bit longer than he should have been out there. And then Case Keenum came in, and he played, you know, pretty all right. We end up winning a game that really, in retrospect, probably a lot closer than it really should have been. So as we move into this game, I guess, you know, and I'll start with you. I guess, Jared, what are your thoughts on things? Because I've been reading a little bit on Twitter here, and, you know, Mike Zimmer was very complimentary of Trubisky and saying that he's seeing him do some things on tape that look a little bit better. And, you know, the offense may be a little bit better than, you know, it was when we faced him the last time. But I mean, Trubisky's ranked 27th by PFF. He's 27th in adjusted net yards per attempt. He's 30th in DVOA. And Deontay Thompson, who they traded to the Bills, I think still has the lead for touchdowns from a wide receiver in their offense at that position. So, like, are they actually any better, or was Zimmer just kind of blowing smoke, trying to be complimentary about an upcoming opponent?
I think it's a little bit of both. Trubisky does look a little bit better as far as from a confidence standpoint and knowing exactly his progressions and making quicker decisions than what we saw. The first matchup, they kept it really vanilla. That was one of his first starts of the beginning of his career. Now, at this point, he has plenty of starts under his belt. So naturally, he's going to look more confident simply because, you know, his timing is a little bit better. He's seen the speed of the game, and he's had the ability to adjust. We all know he doesn't have a lot of weapons on the perimeter or any weapons on the perimeter at all. Their receivers are really bad. The strength of the team is on the interior offensive line. And in the backfield, Cohen and Jordan Howard are a really good tandem. And I expect them to try to come out and establish them early. I think they're going to try to take the game out of the hands of Mitchell Trubisky. Yes, he's going to have to make some throws here and there, but I think they're going to try to lean on the Vikings a little bit with their ground attack because that's the strength of their offense. And, you know, me and Jason, we always talk about this. The recipe to beat or wear down the Vikings offense is to run it straight at them up the middle. And that's what we saw with the Carolina Panthers. And that's what they did. And the Vikings ultimately end up losing to them. So I expect the Bears to try to come out and replicate that type of game plan with Jordan Howard and Cohen and try to run the ball up the middle and attack them up the middle with the running attack. Their defense, I actually like their defense. I'm a big fan of their front seven. They have some issues in the secondary. Kyle Fuller has had a really good year. He's heading into free agency, so naturally he's going to have a good year being that he was on a one-year deal. Adrian Amos has been a bright spot for him at the safety position. Do have some issues at the other corner spot. Prince Amukamara, former first-round pick, he hasn't really had a good year. And, you know, Eddie Jackson, who was a favorite of Jason, has had a really good season. So their secondary has some notable names, and their talent isn't bad. But they just haven't had a good year altogether. I like their defense. Like I said, the front seven, I respect it. They don't really have any threats off the edge. Now that Leonard Floyd is down, but Akeem Hicks up the middle is a really good matchup. Danny Trevathan, who didn't play last time against the Vikings, he was facing a suspension. He should be back this game. But I like their defense overall, but their offense does struggle from time to, or they really do struggle from time to time. But the last two of the last three games they have won, so they are coming in a little bit hot. Well, against Cincinnati, they lost against Detroit, and they beat the Browns last week. So they're coming in riding a bit high, and their confidence is obviously higher than the last time the Vikings played them. So I do expect the Vikings to win this game, of course, but I think the Bears are going to have a better showing than what they did last time when we played them at Soldier Field.
Okay, all right, yeah, and like you said, like the Bears secondary, they definitely have some pieces there that that I like as well. So I guess, you know, Sackley Prince, from your perspective, what are your thoughts of this game? coming off what you have deemed to be I guess we'll say, a slightly disappointing performance. Maybe it was an A- and you were hoping for that A or A+ from the Vikings. What do you want to see from them going into this Bears matchup to make you really feel confident about things, as we head into the playoffs?
Yeah, I guess I want to see, the Vikings get back to what they were doing, towards that middle of the season, really when you really started to see the offense click at a higher level. I do want to see Case Keenum make a little bit better decisions. It's not necessarily about how many touchdowns he throws against the Bears or whatnot. I definitely want us to score or get into more scoring opportunities, whereas we didn't necessarily, in that last game against Green Bay. I think last time we played the Bears, I did say that I was, they weren't playing as well then as I think that they are now. But I did see some of the pieces that JR had touched on, and I'd like, this could be a defense that the Vikings could see who can struggle against. But I do like a lot of the people that JR meant, Danny Trevathan, Amos. I do wish Floyd was able to play just to see, how this offensive line is able to, do against, a nice, really good front seven. But I also think that this game can be a really good snapshot in how the Vikings are going to deal with, maybe if they have to face the Saints later down the road, or how they can handle two running backs who have, really good skill sets, and can they continue to slow them down? So I don't think Cohen and Howard are quite Kamara and Ingram, but you at least get to see, maybe in part, if the Vikings have the ability to really slow down, a really decent, at least, rushing attack. So I'm just looking at some of those things to improve, as well as also get that kind of like that little glimpse that we can, foreshadow maybe into the future.
All right. That's fair. This is one of those games, and coming off the heels of the Green Bay game, I'm going to say, I don't know. I think maybe I'm just ready for the playoffs to start. I know that that the NFL, when they schedule these division matchups at the end of the season, it was supposed to kind of make things more compelling and hopefully have you with matchups that actually mattered as you got to the end of the season. But looking at the state of Green Bay now, and then the state of the Bears where they're currently at, I'm just kind of ready to simulate the season to the end and get in there and hit these playoffs, with everybody healthy and ready to do what we seem to have the team that we're built to do. So guess kind of wrap it up, because I got nothing to add on this game. JR, bold prediction, score prediction. What are your thoughts, man?
I'm going to go Vikings 27, Bears 10, and bold prediction. I think Jaleel Johnson is finally going to be active this game, and I think he's going to get a sack.
I like that. Prince, how about you, man? What you going for in this game?
I'm going to channel my inner, since he's not here, my inner Miles, and I'm going to say Laquan Treadwell scores a last-minute touchdown, not to win the game, but they're already up. But it's just like a garbage time tight touchdown.
Who throws him the ball?
This is gonna. I still say Case Keenum is still in the game at this point.
Okay, all right.
And I would say something to the tune of the score being 24-13.
Okay, all
Vikings.
right. Bold prediction. I'm going with Anthony Barr scores a touchdown. I'm not sure if it's going to be a fumble recovery or a pick six, but Anthony Barr is going to score a touchdown in this game. And score prediction for this one, I'm going to go 30-9 Vikings. Yeah, I think that's what it is. 30-9 Vikings. Anthony Barr scores a touchdown. And yeah, that's it. So I guess JR, I know it's been a little while, and you kind of teased the reading between the lines before the holidays, kind of the season kicked off. I guess what else you got cooking for us? And I guess when's that article gonna drop?
Probably gonna save it to after the New Year's. I'm gonna drop a New Year's edition of Reading Between the Lines. I just want to let all this Black Monday stuff settle out as far as the head coaching situations, because I want to speak on that a little bit, on the Josh Rosen situation. And I want to comment on these bowl games that's going to happen, especially leading up to, well, they'll already be done at that point, but the college football games as well. So I'll have all that included in there.
All right. Looking forward to it. And I guess Sexy Prince, like, are you going to dip your toe back into the pool of writing stuff, or are you going to take a little break? You still on hiatus after burning your mentions down and folks creating burner accounts that yell at you on Twitter and all kinds of other stuff after your Case Keenum fraud article that wasn't really received the way it should have, because maybe some folks didn't necessarily read the whole thing, or the thoughts weren't as clear as you wanted them to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, what's next for you?
Yeah.
Are you going to talk about Mike Zimmer's dog in your next article? Or?
I'm still stomping out some members and whatnot. But no, I'll probably put out an article sometime definitely during the bye week. Maybe wrap up some thoughts that I've been seeing from the Vikings. And I'm really wanting to see what happens in this game. So, kind of further dive deeper into certain things that I want to say or not. But I think my next article will not light Vikings Twitter on fire as much as my last one. I'll say that. So,
well, I'll be looking forward to it. And most importantly, when, because, it's been a little while since we got Saxy Saturday. When is the next installment coming for the people? Because you got us really hyped with the first one, and then so
I had some family emergency related stuff this past weekend, just obviously Christmas holiday and stuff, because I actually every year I do a Christmas. I've been out of the cover game for a little bit, but every year I at least do my Christmas special. But this weekend was really hectic for me, so I'll be returning this weekend. Not gonna be a Christmas special, unfortunately. But yeah, I think I'm gonna come with a little bit of saxiness for this one, some jazzy saxiness, maybe even a little bit more so. For those who aren't into jazz, try to pick something that y'all like, whatnot. So,
all right,
don't worry, we're coming back with fire.
Yeah, word. We need it. Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining me this evening. Listeners, thank you for listening to another episode of the Climbing the Pocket podcast. And we'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.